lights are off and away they go.
Extremely loose. He's managed to hold on and they get.
He missed the complete. He's crazy stuff.
Side Freitas is on the grass on the infield floor. He slides through. He tags Richard Eck.
To hunt and to be hunted, two things which are hardwired into our human genetics. Our instincts know how to react, but can our brains resist our natural urges when we need them in the heat of battle? With today's race being the start of a series based solely on the Predator format, we're getting ready to find out who is the king of the hunt. You're watching round one of the Predator Challenge, and you'll see it all live on the Global SimRacing channel. Hi, I'm Joe Peak, and with me in the booth once again is Sean Ambrose. Behind the scenes is our director, the Dr. Amjad Yaman, and he's using cameras provided by Dougie Beard. Sean, Daytona saw the first appearance of this style of racing within the Pacific Majors a couple years ago. We returned to it for the first series fully devoted to this intense format. Tell us what Daytona's road course is all about.
Well, Joe, the first thing I can tell you is that Big Bill France built this track in 1959 to get off the beach on the original Daytona Beach road course. You know, a lot of people assume it's always been all about big super speedway and high banks and speed. It actually started on a beach as a road course. Okay, that's the history of Daytona. So we come back into our natural habitat today here at Daytona International Speedway, and we're going to have 12 turns on this 3.56 mile road course, and it's going to be a lot of fun. We've got 4 different classes of cars here to deal with today, Joe. But the best way to get a feel for this circuit, which is rather unique and very, very fast, let's hop in the GSRC BMW for a ride around Daytona International Speedway.
All right, we've got Kevin Brown behind the wheel of the GSRC BMW, so let's do a lap around Daytona. You brake for turn 1 immediately after the start-finish. It's a curved braking zone, transitions from banking to flat, and you're coming from the fastest part of the track to one of the slowest. How's that for a route introduction? Slip through this chicane flat out, and then stay left to brake for the International Horseshoe. This is a potential passing zone, so be aware of your mirrors. You'll have a paved access road to the left, so you can use every bit of track to carry more speed off that exit. As we transition back right, the kink is going to be a flat-out blast, but you gotta get back to the left side very quickly and get set up for the Western Horseshoe. This is a really tricky apex to hit, and it's not uncommon to see cars slip wide. Now we get ready for 6, one of the most important corners on the track. This will dump you back onto the oval, so making sure your car is planted at the exit is going to determine how soon you can get on the loud pedal and carry your speed all the way around NASCAR 1 and 2. The good thing is, the steep Daytona banking means speeds are high, and picking up a draft is pretty easy. Stay within range, and you can ride the coattails of a faster car. If you've got the speed to clear the car ahead, do it. Otherwise, be wary of trying to outbrake them, because now you're going to spot your brake marker for the bus stop. It's very, very easy to blow any of these 4 apexes and get a cut course penalty. If you did it right, you're on the power before you've hit the 3rd apex. And it's going to be even more important than turn 6 that you get this right. Like I said at the start of the lap, this will lead you to the fastest part of the circuit. But like most rovals, you can expect a drafting game to play out, and cars are likely to attempt a last lap snipe. Your best hope is to push hard and break the draft before then. If you can, you really want to be the second car in line coming out of the bus stop. But that's a lap around Daytona. That's a lap around here in the GSRC BMW, which they will be racing a similar car, the Mercedes, representing the GT3s out here, which is in the same class as that. Remember? Now, if you keep hearing us saying the Predator series, the Predator format, Predator this, Predator that, and you're going, what is the Predator stuff for? Well, this is not going to be like a normal race. It is still a race. However, they are going to start the slowest cars out there first. And those slowest cars have the greatest advantage because they are the slowest cars. Now, the faster cars will be released one by one with a time disadvantage. And they have to try to beat those slower cars to the line. Everybody is racing against one another despite being in different class cars. And after 90 minutes, it is the driver who gets to the line first that wins. So that's why they call it the Predator format, with them hunting down those slower cars. And of course, a crucial part of that, Sean, is what are the time gaps that these cars are going to have to overcome. Now, they do a lot of intricate calculations to try and figure this out, but in the end, what's the number?
It's a very, very special, secretive algorithm that only very, very few have access to, and anybody else has access to it, well, they may not live long. But Joe, basically what's going to happen is the GT3s are going to start on the grid. Okay, that's going to be the first class to get shot off in this cannon today that we call the Predator format. Okay, now the GT3s, that is the Mercedes. Okay, GT3. They will start first. Then we'll release the GTEs a minute and 40 seconds later. They'll be allowed to leave pit lane, and the GTE class, which is comprised of the two newest cars on the iRacing service, the Ferrari 488 and the Ford GT. Okay, now 2 minutes after this race starts, then we'll release just 20 seconds later. Okay, the GT1s will be released. Now the time on the GT1 and GTE is very, very close. Now what is a GT1? That is the Aston Martin. And we don't have a lot of them here today, but I will tell you this. The Aston Martin is a fine machine and will do very well here at Daytona. Watch out. Now, let's get to the Corvettes. The C7 Daytona prototypes. 4 minutes and 50 seconds after this race starts, they will release the Hounds and the likes of George Sandman, Josh Wolf, Trevor Varosky, Lana Kalisto, Travis Henderson, Michael Foley. They will be unleashed. And, we know how those Daytona prototypes get around here, Joe. Pretty darn fast. They're spotted, the rest of the field spotted 4 minutes and 50 seconds. Will it be enough? That's the beauty of the Predator format. Will it be enough? I don't know. I don't know. We've got some calculations, but what's really going to happen? They still have to turn the laps.
That's the beauty of this series. It's so unpredictable. You really just do not know how the race is going to finish up until the dying moments. You can make predictions, you can do estimations, but there's so many variables. Now, you might be asking yourself, well, if they're all racing together in the same class, that means they can defend and block and do various things to slow down those faster classes, right? Well, not exactly. They do have strict rules about inter-class interactions. You are not allowed to block and impede the progress of the faster class. You can take the normal racing line, but you cannot make moves to try and intentionally slow them down. If they come up on you and they've got to run, you have to let them through. You can't just sit there and fight them the whole time. That being said, you don't have to pull over to let them through. It's not like blue flag rules that we usually have in racing where you need to jump out of the way. You can hold your own. And that's what makes it interesting, is not everybody's going to be playing as nice as you would in normal multi-class racing. Now, Sean, I'm looking at some of the names that we've got showed up, and some of these drivers have driven this format before in the Pacific Majors, which birthed this style of racing a few years ago. George Sandman is one I can see is a major player. Lionel Kalisto, Jason Fleischle, who's won twice in this format and even came in second the last time we saw it at Le Mans last month. So I don't know about you, but I feel like these guys right away have a bit of an edge, having experienced this before.
Yeah, well, of course they do. If you're not familiar with, certainly if you're not familiar with multi-class racing, you're already out. Okay, you're already at a disadvantage. If you've not run this Predator format before, then you've got a little bit to learn. Major strategy involved with this. Joe, this is going to be not a very long race, to be honest with you. Not the 4-6 hour endurance race you're used to seeing. I don't want to say it's a sprint race either, because they're going to need to make at least one pit stop today, all classes. But you're really going to need to be on point, and you're not going to have a lot of opportunity for mistakes on this track. And trust me, there are a few places on this track where you can definitely make mistakes. It's not all about riding the high banks and riding down that backstretch. You've got to really, really perform well in some tricky spots on this track.
And having watched this a number of times before with the Pacific Majors, what would your advice be to these drivers who are just coming into this series and this is their first time running a race of this type?
My advice to them would be patient, Also, keep your head on a swivel, because when the faster classes are coming through, you're going to really, really need to be aware, situational awareness of where they're at, and have a good plan for your pit stop. You've got to be perfect down that pit lane. This is not a hard pit lane to get down. It is a little tricky getting off because there's traffic coming by on the right, so you got to hope you're clear. Also, my best advice: have a spotter or somebody helping you out there in the background, if at all possible.
I'm certain that will be very invaluable, especially with the aggressive moves we expect from the faster classes, almost needing to do them by necessity of trying to win. They have to rush to the line as quick as they possibly can, which you do in every race, but in here especially so. You have no idea where you are in relation to the cars around you, and so you just cannot waste anything. There we see Lyndon Swaby, who's going to be out there today in one of the Fords, the newest class we have here on iRacing, the GTE cars between the Ford and the Ferrari, the only class that has multiple makes within it. Everything else is going to be single cars. Now, speaking of dealing with this traffic and whatnot, you also have to race within your class. You want to be the first one out there because that's the best way to ensure that you are going to win overall, is you have to be the first car within the GTE or the GT3s or whatever. So where do you expect them to make moves if they're racing amongst one another of the same type of car, Sean?
Well, you know what? I think you're going to have to roll up your NASCAR sleeves and work the draft down the backstretch through the high banks. Look for your passing opportunities in the draft here. Couple spots inside the track where you might be able to get a pass done, maybe somewhere down in the International Horseshoe or over in the Western Horseshoe. Now, of course, the bus stop is always a great opportunity. You go down, you're screaming down that backstretch. If you can get to the inside and really find a good line through there to outbrake somebody, we'll see some passes there. Possibly the faster classes overtaking the slower classes, but that's the bus stop's also a very tricky spot on track. For as rewarding as it can be, much time can be lost down there, and you can find that wall up to the right, getting out of it if you're not careful with your exit there out of that bus stop.
I have no doubt, I've driven this track myself a number of times, and it's always a little bit scary trying to get the power down out of there. Now, the thing that's got me very curious here, Sean, is that the classes normally are very different in this format. In the past, we've seen the Pacific Majors pick very distinct classes, but you pointed out the GTEs and the GT1s 20 seconds apart from their release. That's incredibly tight. Do you expect that to be a problem and for the GTEs trying to overtake the GTEs since they're so close in pace?
I think it is going to be one of the more interesting things that we're going to need to keep an eye on. Don't leave out the GT3s. They have not even got barely a full lap to get around, and that's it. That's their advantage. They get one full lap. So the GT3s, I know we've talked to one or two drivers that are a little concerned about that time, but you know what? The organizers of this series have a knack for getting it right. I don't know. We'll see, Joe.
It'll be pretty interesting. Just a minute left in warm-up. This is not qualifying. They've qualified previously in the week. This series insists on the drivers spending plenty of time out on track, prepping, practicing, not just to make sure that the drivers are familiar with one another and familiar with how traffic will interact, but also because they need to get accurate enough times. The more samples they get, the more accurate their calculations can be to make sure that each of the classes is given the right amount of penalty at the start that they have to overcome. And hence why they are such sticklers on making sure you show up for practice. Now, we've got 22 cars out there today, so a little bit lighter field than what we're used to seeing in the regular Pacific Majors Predator races, but I have no doubt that it's going to be just as equally chaotic as we wait for these last 10 seconds to chip down here in the warm-up. Then we go racing for 90 minutes here at Daytona International Raceway for round one of the Predator Challenge here on the Global Sim Racing channel.
Hey, look at that. I'm sorry, Joe.
Go ahead, Sean.
I know I saw the left arrow. I was like, hey, look, the checkered flag's out. The arrow's pointing to it. There we go.
Making sure we all notice. I love the lights here at Daytona. Certainly gives it a unique atmosphere. With that, we are going to go to the grid. Your order on the pole, it's going to be George Sandman, followed by Josh Wolf. Now, again, these guys are going to be starting at a disadvantage. They will not be starting from the grid. Trevor Vavroski is going to be starting in third, followed by Travis Henderson in fourth. Lionel Kalisto in fifth. And then the last of our DPs is Michael Foley Jr., I should say, starting in sixth. Then we go to the GT1s, Carter Kundinger and the Aston Martin. Will be starting in seventh overall, Benjamin Morton in eighth, and the third of our GT1s will be Aaron Stowe. Rounding out our top 10 and starting into the GTE, Sean, is Brian Bennett.
All right, and then second in your GTEs, 11th overall, going to be Jimbo Pfeiffer. Lyndon Swaby there in his 4GT 12th. Claude Belville there 13th. Jason Fleischle in the Ferrari will start 14th. Dawson Brock 15th. William Fletcher, 16th. Joshua Gardner, 17th today. Hayden Pastorius, 18th. Dexter Castro. Now that's going to be the leader there in the GT3 class. Okay, he's going to start 19th overall. Wayne Hutchinson. And then Ray Partridge. And then John King.
That is our 22-car field out there today. You can see they've started it on the backstretch, and our GT3 cars have now taken off and away. All four of them out there. Going to be a light start. And you know, this is something we talk about a lot, Sean, in these Predator starts usually, is that these lower classes can't fight amongst themselves as much to try and get as much of a gap as they can. Looks like that's not going to be as much of a problem here for the GT3 start. A very light field, so a lot easier for these guys to work together.
Yeah, Joe, indeed. This shouldn't be too bad. Now, the focus is going to be, they need as quick an outlap as possible, obviously, okay? We don't want to waste a whole lot of time here. You only get 1 minute and 40 seconds to get away from them, so here we go.
Pace car peels off. Dexter Castro has control. And as the green flies, he gets a great jump there over our second place GT3. Down into turn one, John King follows them in. Wayne Hutchison follows him around. John King trailing in third with Ray Partridge bringing up the tail of these four. Already line astern now as they hit the infield, coming around the International Horseshoe.
Ray Partridge's paint scheme on that Mercedes, it makes me happy.
It feels fitting here at Daytona. It's the right paint scheme to have on at least one car out here. Already we're getting the 1 minute warning for our GTE cars. So if you're thinking this is going to be a boring race, but by the way that we have four cars out there, that is quickly going to change.
That's all you get, folks. Four cars, 50 laps.
Usually the starts of most races tend to be a little bit more chaotic. This one, it's going to trickle in, and the intensity is just going to build and build. It's going to be a very different experience for our viewers who are new to the Predator format. We welcome you once again to the very first race in the Predator Challenge here as Dexter Castro comes down to the bus stop for the first time. He's running an inside line there.
Yeah.
I'm not sure why. He was
already trying to break a little draft back there, to be honest with you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Dexter always looking for every little advantage he can get.
All right, so they're coming around and going to complete a lap here. I think this would be a good spot if we had a license for it to insert some Wagner, if anybody's familiar with his music anyway.
And our GTEs have taken off now.
Here they go.
Leading the way, Brian Bennett going to be the first one off of there. Jimbo Pfeiffer as well, trailing behind, just exiting out. Those two are going to be clear of our GT3s. What about our...
Jeez.
What about the rest of them? Oh, and they're going to get
Dexter
very
Castro.
mixed up.
Right next to William Fletcher Castro, our leader comes through. Was our leader.
Well, he's still the overall leader.
He's still the leader, yeah.
But this is what's interesting is they came out right in the midst of the GT3s, which means it's going to be extremely difficult for them to to deal with all this traffic here right at the start. No time for the GTEs to really get on their own.
Wow.
Meanwhile, have we had our GT1s already accelerate away? Looks like that is the case.
Yes, sir.
You can see Carter Kundinger leading the way in the Astons.
Yeah, Kundinger gets along very clean. Benjamin Morton, Aaron Stowe all out on track. Just got up under the oval, Joe.
So that puts 15 cars out on track. And you can see starting to get a little bit more crowded out here. Wonder what this GTE traffic is going to do to our fight in the GT3s. As right now it looks like John King, as well as Ray Partridge, very close behind Wayne Hutchison. Dexter Castro's given himself a gap. But you mentioned the draft is going to keep some of these cars within very tight reins of each other.
Well, it's going to allow those GTEs to continue to catch Dexter and reel him in lap after lap, just like you're seeing here now. That's Joshua Gardner coming fast down the straight there and now getting through turn one.
And Lyndon Swaby is trying to sneak onto the inside of Ray Partridge in a slower class there. And he's able to get through. He brings Claude Belval in along with him, but you can already see the minute differences in the way these cars get their lap times is making it difficult to put in decent laps around here. Hutchison, however, just got overtaken by John King for second overall, took advantage coming out of the International Horseshoe. Down into the Western Horseshoe, you can move King into P2.
See, it is fast and furious. Don't forget, we've got the prototypes waiting on deck here.
They're going to be released very soon as they come onto the oval here. This group that we're watching, Swaby, not making much of inroads, finally get a little bit of power, using the draft to try and look around the outside of Hutchison. Oh, he gets squeezed a little bit. Hutchinson, I don't think, was necessarily trying to make contact there, but that cost a position as Belval sneaks by Swaby as he has to lift.
Joe, the DPs have been cut loose. George Sandman gets off the pit lane, down into turn 3. He leads them. They're going to get away clean, Joe, ahead of everybody.
About a lap and a half that these DPs are going to have to make up on our overall. Oh, and GTE lead Bennett. What happened?
He spins that turn 1, a big trouble zone. Comes
Watch
down
the
hard on
replay.
the brakes.
Here we see him coming off the banking. That Ferrari, did not like to try and woe up in that last portion. The rear came around. And believe that was Pfeiffer making evasive action, moving to the lead of our GTE cars there. Doing a good job sneaking around.
Yeah, his teammate just got by him there. That was awful close, Joe. Oh, big action out here. John King locking him up. Oh, and contact. He gets hit. I think that was Lyndon Swaby.
That was Belval. Into the Western Horseshoe. We're going to look at the replay here.
Yeah, it looks like Belval.
Yeah, Belval just started to turn it around. You can see, and Swaby had no chance to try and avoid. Yep. Just pushed him the rest of the way around.
Boy, and Wayne Hutchison just missed him. That was the yellow car getting by there, the yellow Mercedes.
It's a car, just not the right type of car. But and Swaby has apologized to him over the radio, obviously not intentional. Yeah, I just realized that Swaby's car is painted like the Force India. So I love that pink scheme. Glad to see more drivers not afraid to use a little bit of pink on their car. There's Swaby continuing on his way.
Now our race leader, Dexter Castro's having to deal with Brian Bennett right now. And Bennett's catching him in a good spot on the bank.
He gets around. Meantime, we've got a battle going on back for second place in the DPs, Josh Wolf and Trevor Vivrovsky. We should note that they are teammates. But the question is, how much of teammates are there? Because Vrosky, I'm sure, wants just as much to win and to try and run down George Sandman.
Yeah, either one of those guys would love to get a win. But they better get busy soon, because Sandman, awful strong in practice. Again, had a great qualifying time. They weren't even close, so hope it's good strategy for them today and a little bit of luck.
Fans of the Pacific Majors certainly recognize George Sandman's name. A bit notorious in these Daytona prototypes, known as being an incredibly fast driver in these machines. If we were going to pick one of these DPs to win, I would think that Sandman was likely to be it. Behind him, a little bit of action between Wolf and Vrosky, as Vrosky took a look to the inside down into turn one, but nothing happened.
Hey, they've had good pace to start this thing. I'm not going to sell them short. In fact, Vrosky was fastest around that last time, so you know what? They're off to a great start. Keep it up.
Already we're getting some of our GT1 cars making their way through the GTEs. Benjamin Morton sneaks by Lyndon Swaby. That one was for position, moving Morton up to 11th overall.
Yeah, and Carter Kundinger actually just came across the start-finish line down into one, finds himself right behind Dexter Castro.
Should be a little bit easier for these GT1s to deal with the GT3s. As he looks to the inside, Dexter gives him room down to the apex. This is not for position. This is getting the one lap back that these GT1s have to get, and that puts Kundinger on the same lap as our leader.
Boy, Dexter's had to deal with quite a bit of traffic already early on in this race, and we only put 5 laps, and we're working on lap 5 now.
Still a lot of racing to go. This 50-lap race. Going to be an intense amount of time. Your order still Dexter Castro, your overall leader. John King second in those GT3s, and Partridge in third.
Another battle for position. Actually, Carter Kundinger continues picking up spots. Just gets around William Fletcher. The GTE car being passed for position.
And that's going to move Kundinger up into 9th. These GT1s making very quick inroads on the slower class immediately in front of them. He's got a ways to go, though, because up ahead of him, Jimbo Pfeiffer is the lead of these GTEs. And he's got what looks to be about, I'd say, another 15 seconds up the road. Actually, maybe less than that.
Some of these guys who abandon the Aston Martin may rue the day, Joe.
Don't doubt it. Jason Fleischle being one of them. He won, I believe, the 2 races that he won in this format in the Aston Martin, but he's decided to switch over to the Ferrari for this one.
I wasn't even going to call him out.
Bennett was defending there down into the International Horseshoe. Not going to last him long, though. Held up Carter Kundinger by just a little bit, and Kundinger now up into 8th. Getting a better and better picture of how far behind Pfeiffer he is. I'm seeing roughly 10 seconds behind. 11 seconds, I believe.
Yeah, and you know what, Joe? Now he's got a Ford GT in front of him. Will he pick up the Ford GT quite as quickly? I don't know. Pretty good gap between those 2 cars right now. And Dawson Brock did a pretty good job on exit. But boy, looking at it here from above, I see him starting to close already. Carter really, really on his pony here, heading down the backstretch, getting a nice run off the turn. Boy, what a draft.
He runs out of room, though, and he brakes early, not trying to stick his nose in on Brock. Out of the bus stop, he manages to get himself a nice clean bit of grip, moves up to the high side, and the oomph of that Aston Martin is going to leave Brock behind. So Kundinger now into 7th.
Man, that is a bad, bad machine, man.
Prototype lead has closed in. What Josh Wolf and Trevor Vrosky had lost on Sandman at the start, they've made back up. They hit the high banking one more time.
You think the Sandman feels a little lonely up there with a couple of teammates chasing him down? Or not a couple, but three of them, basically. I mean, Henderson's a little bit off pace right now, but you got to imagine he'll be up there at some point.
Well, if there's one thing I know, it's that there's little that can make George nervous. So I'm sure he's just peeking in his mirrors and ignoring what he can, knowing he's got a lot of racing left to go here, only 8 laps in. They're coming on to NASCAR 3 and 4. Wolf should have a bit of a draft here. He's closing in. Is he going to make a move? Or is he going to hold behind Sandman? A lot of racing left to go. He looks up to the outside. I think that's a lift. That is definitely a lift there from Josh Wolf. Oh, and as I spoke too soon, tries to outbrake him, goes way wide out into the marbles. Car squiggles trying to gather it back together. Trevor Vrosky is going to slot into second now.
Yeah, that probably wasn't the best thing he could have done there. That was a shame.
He's lucky to have grabbed it from the gray stuff and brought it back to the racing line, but just a switch of positions, not much time lost among these second and third place DPs.
Yeah, not too much. And you said it right there. Lucky not to spin the car around. He did a great job of bringing it back from the brink. I don't want to be on the outside, though, coming there and end at turn 1.
I wouldn't be. I would feel the same way as you on that one, Sean, as we watch these three continue on getting on the banking one more time. Now, we had some of our own predictions on where these drivers would need to be to overcome their gaps to get it exactly tied for all of them at the line. And from our calculations, Dexter and Poindexter and what's Bill's 2 guys that are usually doing our work? Sean? Simon and Poindexter.
Simon.
Yeah, Simon and Poindexter were hard at work, and from what they calculate, our GT1s are actually well ahead. We believe at about the 1/4 mark, they needed to be about a lap behind of our GT3s. They've already surpassed that.
Rue the day. Rue the day. Love that Aston Martin. It's a good car to us, Joe.
Has an incredible sound, the V12 just screaming compared to its normal stablemate, the Corvette, which has a more guttural sound, but today it's up against a different mix of cars, although I guess it is out there with a Corvette. Well, Ray Partridge just took a tow for some reason. This was in our GT3s, our slowest class. Oh, This is coming up to turn 6. He put it in the tires. This looks like this was on his lap 9, I believe. Maybe about a minute or so ago. Let's see if we can get this on screen.
That. I'm glad our director got it.
See, I believe he's going through the kink here. Yes, here we go. So it'll be a little bit after this. Coming up to the Western Horseshoe, that beautifully liveried machine, the STP Mercedes. And here's where it goes wrong. Brakes a little bit too late and can't keep it out of the tires.
Yeah. You don't want to miss it there. That's probably why he had to take it a tow, as he got stuck in that tire barrier, Joe.
Unfortunate to see. We're going to watch it one more time on board. He went a little bit wide coming out of the Western Horseshoe, but that's kind of neither here nor there at this point. Oof, yeah, that's a danger you run in iRacing sometimes, that glitches like those can happen.
That's going to mean heavy damage for that car, Joe. He'll probably be in that pit box for quite a while. On screen, our leader, Dexter Castro, still hanging on. Still in command of this race.
And he's broken that draft, Sean. He's got about 10 seconds over John King, so he's looking very handy to be able to just focus on his own race.
Yeah, things off to about as good a start as he could have expected right now. Sliding it through the bus stop right there. That Merc tires already starting to maybe talk to him a little bit. We didn't talk much about tires. It can't... it's probably not going to be much of an issue here. You spend so much time on the high-speed banks and straightaways of this track, but man, if you abuse them, they will bite back at you.
Absolutely. As we see Swaby overtaking Dexter Castro.
Yeah, here comes Swaby there on the outside, and he backs out of it.
Has something happened to Lionel Kalisto? We got some information here. Oh, Kalisto in a nice battle with Travis Henderson. Actually, I don't believe this is...
He just got by,
oh, no, this is for position.
Him. He must have just gotten by him because Henderson... I think Henderson might have had a problem there. Either that or he just caught him.
Well, he's catching him back because Henderson is using the draft of the high banks, coming through 3 and 4. Now up across the line, he's going to challenge him down into one side by side between the DPs. Henderson in the purple machine around the outside, trying to be brave. Coming back at him using the inside line. Lionel Kalisto denies him. They're still going to be side by side through the weaving of the S's and then down, trying once more. Does Travis Henderson try to brake late enough, but it looks like he can't keep the car steady at the apex, has to give it up and let it back for Lionel Kalisto for 4th in these DPs.
And that is a battle between Alliance Racing and Grizzly Racing there, and that's a good one. The little train winning that battle for now.
Oh, we got a problem with William Fletcher spinning in the bus stop. Was trying to overtake a slower class. And that GT1, or no, excuse me, he's a GTE. That's a
GT,
Ford.
Yeah, Ford. Yeah, he just gets in a little bit too hot, misses the braking there.
So he was actually overtaken by that. It was a GT1 car that had just gotten by him as we come back live. And now, why is Swaby on the apron? Did he get a slowdown penalty here?
No, that car's crabbing. Something happened.
Oh, this might be worth watching. This was right after our replay we just watched coming out of the bus stop.
Oh.
He slams it into the outside wall. We talked about this early in the broadcast, Sean.
Tank slapper. He hit it hard. I think he knocked the rear end totally out of it, Joe.
Well,
heavy damage on the right rear.
Oof, man, that was a hard hit. Our old friend Kevin Brown can commiserate with Lyndon Swaby on that one, Sean.
Wow, wow, wow.
Well, he's taking it back to the pits for repairs, but we are more than a quarter of the way through the race now. Up to our calculations, GT1 is way ahead of where they need to be, and this is all compared to GT3s, we should clarify. The GTEs are slightly behind where they need to be to try to take the win, and the DP class is very, very close. Hard to tell where they're going to fall.
I love the way this is shaping up.
I do too. This is going to be fascinating.
Okay, so 3 Aston Martins. That was the low man on the totem pole in this race, Joe. Just remember that.
Yeah, go figure. May have found a secret. I believe, if I understand correctly, they can switch between cars if they want between races. Since they're all racing against one another, it's all, I guess, down to what you feel most comfortable in.
Well, I know what I feel
Jason Fleischle having some problems out-braking himself behind Carter Kundinger. And I believe this is an inter-class problem as Kundinger's in the Aston Martin, Fleischle in a Ferrari. Those GTEs have some good braking on them.
Oh yeah, definitely. And actually, with the GTEs and some who don't have those vehicles yet, and maybe don't know, you do have the choice of the type of friction material you want to use on those.
Incredible the degree of specificity that iRacing allows you on these cars, just like they do in real life. Now, the one thing the GTEs don't have, and I believe the GT1s also don't have this, Sean, is the anti-lock brakes on them, which might explain Fleischle's troubles.
Yes. That just might. Hey, one of our favorite cars is back on track. Ray Partridge gets his Mercedes back on track. She's a little beat up, not quite as good as it once was, but he's hanging in there. He's actually has not fallen all the way to the end of the field. Sits currently in 18th place. So keep digging, Ray.
The unfortunate thing for him is that unlike a normal race where not being at the back is a good thing, he's still got a bunch of DPs, a GTE car, and actually I believe all of the GT1s currently ahead of him, so he's likely to be overtaken being in that GT1 car. Meanwhile, on screen, this is for position between Fletcher and Belval.
What a hornet's nest of action right there for Vrosky.
And that's for position as well. That's for the lead DP from Vrosky, trying to come around the outside of Sandman. They've dropped Joshua Wolf, who has fallen back. And Sandman is even getting on the radio as they come down the straight, tell him it's a long race. Is Trevor going to back out, take his advice? No, he's not. He's going to try to be aggressive down around the outside, trying to use the momentum, smokes the tires just a little bit, but loses out. He is going to make Sandman work for this one.
Oh, boy.
And both of these drivers have run these Predator races in these cars before. Trevor knows what he's up against.
Yeah, I know, and I love how George came on the radio with that reminder, that gentle reminder.
Well, I'm not sure how well that is going to work because Trevor's going to be just as hungry. He knows he can't sit back because he's got to be ahead of him by the end if he wants to take the overall win.
And Joe, look who's just up in front of him.
And P4 up for grabs. This is is this overall?
Yeah, it's Kundinger. Kundinger getting best Pfeiffer there, and he takes the 4th spot.
So, away from Jimbo Pfeiffer, who had inherited the lead a little bit earlier on. And that was from Kundinger, actually, I believe. Or no, not from Kundinger, because Kundinger's in the GT1. Excuse me. It's all confusing around here, yeah.
Lot going on.
All right, Vavrovsky's not giving up. He's still on him. And is he going to try to pin Vavrovsky, or pin Sandman in? They're going to go 3 wide as they go by Dexter. He didn't quite have the room. I think he lifted a little bit, actually, to let him through. Didn't want to try that risky of a move here as they break once again down into the first corner. Sandman goes defensive. Could hurt his line. Could give an opportunity to Trevor.
It's Dexter Castro right there in the middle of that, guys.
Thankfully, Dexter wasn't really in the way of these two and could just let them on through. Castro still our overall leader, now 13 seconds ahead of John King.
Well, there we go. Castro setting the pace, doing it well. They still have a full 2 laps to make up to catch him.
We've
the
got
DPs, that is. I'm sorry.
Yeah. And I was going to say, we've got our calculations based on these GT3s. What will be really fascinating is we're not really paying as close attention to where the other classes are in relation to each other. We know whether or not the GT3s might fall, but which of the classes are going to be ahead of each other. Granted, our calculations do give us a bit of an inkling since we know where they are in relation to the GT3s, which should mean a bit of relation to each other as well, but just not as exact. So as we look at our second place DP, Vavrovsky dropped back just a little bit from the Sandman.
I'm thinking maybe he used up the tires a little bit, Joe. Maybe he needed a break. He's going to run up on Sandman here, though, as they come across the start-finish line. Looks to the top of the track.
He's been looking very strong down into the braking into turn 1. If I was Trevor, I'd be making mental notes about that, about a potential good place to overtake. One of the interesting things I would like to note about these DPs, though, Sean, is that we've got 4 different classes of cars, but if I'm not mistaken, the DPs are the only ones that can change tires and take fuel at the same time.
That's right. You are correct about that. The other cars, the GT class cars, do not. They do separately. So yes, the DP does have that advantage. But again, they had an over 4 minute.
Sandman
spinning.
Loops it.
Wow.
He turns it back around just in time to see Josh Wolf scream by, and that will put Sandman third into the DPs. Let's watch the replay.
Turn 6 can catch anybody out, and it obviously catches Sandman.
As amazing as George is, even he is not immune to mistakes, and there you can see just how costly it is. That's put him a whole 4 to 5 seconds behind our DP leader.
It's probably my least favorite section on the track, Joe.
Same. I agree. It is frustrating to try to get the power down out of there. Now, they do take the fact that the way that these cars can do the pit stops, how fast they can do them, whether or not they can take tires at the same time, they put them into the calculation, Sean. But I almost wonder if it's a question of, do you want tires? Because these DPs are a little bit notoriously skittish on cold tires.
Ooh, yeah, that outlap, always tricky here at Daytona on the DPs, especially now. I know they've improved that a little bit, but still, it's not the type of risk you want to take. I think we'll see the DPs, probably most everybody, might try to double stint here. We'll see, but the DP, I think you can probably get away with it.
Wondering if it's worth it, if the heat will stay in the tires enough without taking them to be able to get out there, and if there's enough left in the tires in the final stages of this race for these DPs to risk not taking them. We'll have to watch and wait and see. We expect at least one pit stop for all 4 class of cars. Everybody's starting to get themselves a little bit of racetrack all of themselves and just focus on their own race. Let's give you an update of the top car in each of the classes. Dexter Castro, we mentioned, looking very much handy with that 14-second lead. Meanwhile, the top of the GT1s has already overtaken the next slowest class, and that is Carter Kundinger leading the way in those. What's the next 2, Sean?
Okay, it's going to be Jimbo Pfeiffer and Jason Fleischle there in the GTEs. They're next, and then they have Brian Bennett, their teammate. So that's your Alliance drivers right there, 5th, 6th, and 7th right now. And then it's Benjamin Morton who is closing in on them now.
And then deep.
Sorry, Joe, go ahead.
I was going to say, ooh, and Trevor Vorosky having to watch out for the GT1 cars there as he heads into the infield. But Trevor Vorosky is our highest of the DPs. So again, your 4 class of cars, even though they are all racing against one another, is the DPs, the GT1s, the GTEs, and the GT3s. And if you're just joining us, Vrosky,
really pushing it there with Dawson Brock.
I wonder if we could get an onboard from Brock's view. That just looked like there was inches between those cars. Here we go with the replay. Coming into turn 6, one of those danger zones we talked about, Sean. If it's hard enough on your own getting the power down, look at that.
Yeah. I don't think they actually made contact, though, and that works out for Dawson Brock. But back on board with Brock now. We're looking at the replay there. You'll see it. It's more of a checkup. There was not any contact. They soldier on.
What was brave about Trevor for me on that one is he's going around the outside. He doesn't know whether or not Dawson is going to wash out. Although, I think you mentioned that those 2 are teammates still.
Yeah. And here comes George Sandman. He's found his rhythm again. Joshua Wolf just up in front of him as they head down through turn 1. On board Wolf here. There's Sandman on the attack right behind him.
Rushing down into the International Horseshoe. This just goes back to what we were talking about. Sandman, we know he has the pace. We know he's a lightning quick driver. Meanwhile, Aaron Stowe was apologizing for something. Not sure what that was for. Going back to check. Looks like just a little bit of nervous moments for them coming in through the infield, so nothing worth really us going back to get a replay of, unfortunately. getting close to this pit stop window being open for these cars.
There's Aaron Stowe there on screen.
There's our leader in the GT1s, Carter Kundinger. He has got, looks like, 55 seconds to overcome to get up to Dexter Castro. And if you're just joining us once again, welcome to round one of the Predator Challenge. We're nearly halfway through this race here at Daytona International Speedway. If you're not familiar with the Predator format, all these different classes are racing against one another. They are not separate, and they are fighting for the overall win.
Sandman battling in turn one with Wolf.
Round the outside, and wow, a power move from George Sandman. Remember, we saw Trevor Vovrosky and Josh Wolf both try this, and I have to admit, George just showed him how it's done.
School is back in session, gentlemen.
My goodness. Josh Wolf hasn't dropped back, still on the tail of George Sandman as they come through the Western Horseshoe. And if he can stay within that draft, he can hold on to him through these oval portions of the circuit. But Sandman now has 2.5 seconds to try to run down Vovrosky. Got some more calculations here going. We're hearing that Carter Kundinger needs to be just shy of 2 seconds a lap faster than Dexter to catch him before these 50 laps are over. He's apparently running on average about 3 seconds a lap faster, it looks like here, Sean.
That difference about 1, maybe 1.2. That don't add up. It does if you're Carter Kundinger. Who's pitting? Oh, Wayne Hutchinson.
Hutchinson, yeah.
Yeah.
Started from second. Now, is this scheduled? He's got some damage that we can see. I'm going to go back and check to see if he maybe had a little bit of a run-in.
I'm trying to find it. I don't see anything here immediately.
Yeah, I'm not, unfortunately, seeing any contact, at least with the front of the car, with anybody else. It's strange that he managed to get that. Meanwhile, Benjamin Morton, you can see, has moved himself into 6th overall.
I'm concerned about this battle between Sandman and Wolf, to be honest with you, because they've got a lot of traffic in front of them right now to work through. We've got Brian Bennett there and Benjamin Morton.
Does it come back up on the oval? Yes. See, Wolf still trying to trail him, see if maybe the traffic can help him a little bit as they work their way past the Ferrari. Now, I went back and looked as far as I dared before I had to get back to the action that's currently happening. Wayne Hutchison's damage seems to have happened many a lap ago as Josh Wolf has to take evasive action, and that's going to definitely give him a slowdown penalty across the bus stop. And that was an unforced error, I think. He wasn't close. It wasn't like he was unsighted, where you can see there from the braking, Sean, from Sandman.
Yeah.
Very unusual. That cost him a chunk of time. Josh Wolf now 2 seconds back from Sandman. But in all of this, Sandman has lost a little time to Trevor Vovrosky from the traffic. There is 3 seconds between them.
That's going to change things a little bit. Joe, we lost sight of the fact that Carter Kundinger is now actually up to 3rd because of that pit stop by Wayne Hutchinson. That was a long stop for Hutchinson. But he is back on track.
Kundinger has chopped that gap to Dexter Castro down to 44 seconds. Now, interesting note that we're getting from the chat here. If we could get a close-up of Josh Wolf's nose. Look at that. Oh, he's got a significant bit of damage, but apparently there's a bit of a bug sometimes that can happen with this. And we're wondering if he might suffer from that. He's holding on to Sandman. He's still about 2 seconds back, so he might have gotten lucky here.
Maybe. I mean, we're going to need a few laps to probably see if that's really an issue. It'd probably take about a 5-lap average on him to see. Boy, we'd sure hate to have that happen.
Definitely this early on. They do not have any free repairs in this series, so no spare cars. What damage you do, you've got to deal with it. And of course, the bug that we're talking about is that sometimes you can get a little bit of a meatball flag for damage that isn't really affecting the car. Your car's still safe to run out there, but iRacing doesn't think you are for some reason.
Boy, I wonder if the top speed is off on that C7, maybe just a little bit there, because you know Morton was really pulling him down the straight there, Joe. Morton in the Aston Martin.
Well, the Aston, the GT1 cars are pretty powerful in a straight line, but yeah, I think you might be right that he shouldn't be that close to him, that he's able to start gunning him down.
Yeah, I mean, he had literally pulled right up next to his door. You know, I don't know. Maybe that was just Josh being careful as he gets around the Ferrari of Joshua Wolf. Keeps himself moving forward. Sandman about 2.5 seconds in front of him now.
Wayne Hutchinson, who has completed his pit stop, has come back out in 11th place. However, he has to wait for everybody else to cycle through theirs, getting very close to that halfway point, 23 laps into this 50-lap race.
Another battle for position. It's actually William Fletcher trying to overtake Wayne Hutchinson right now. That's a GTE and a GT3 going to battle. And again, that's for position. That's for 11th.
It is for position, but remember, we haven't seen Fletcher pit yet.
That's right. I'm sorry. Wayne did take that pit stop. Yes. Trying to find the natural battles on track, and my timing and scoring is telling me that, and I forgot that he had just pit.
17th having a battle, though, on screen, and this is Travis Henderson and Lionel Kalisto.
Yeah.
We saw these two early on getting very tight on track, and Travis Henderson has to back out of it.
Yeah, here comes the little train. Choo-choo.
Oh, smokes it up the inside, but he brakes way too late, clatters into the side of Kalisto. They've got more traffic coming around, both drivers waiting patiently to get going again.
Boy, that doesn't end well. Let's go on board Travis Henderson's car. He's going to lock him up coming down here. Just gets in way too hot, Joe.
Yes, just see it. Yeah, oof. And he knew it. He was trying hard to woe it up, but unfortunately it looks like Kalisto wasn't aware and turned into what he thought was a fair amount of space to the inside and gets turned around. He still continues on ahead of Henderson. I think Henderson waited for him to get going, knowing that it wouldn't be fair if he got the position that way. Well, that does put them even farther back from the cars ahead of them, which right now is Josh Gardner, who is from a different class.
Does it feel awkward now, Joe? Oh, boy, Henderson's still locking him up back there behind Kalisto. Jeez. I'm sorry I went back to it. They were getting to the bus stop, and Henderson just goes in a four-wheel lockup behind Lionel Kalisto. Missed him by that much.
Up onto the high banks they come once again. Kalisto now under threat from Henderson. He's got to do it cleanly. He's hit him once. He doesn't want to try and do it again. He's already probably got his ire as he goes side by side. He's going to have to outbrake him the long way around. We've seen one driver manage this, but can Henderson do it? He's got a little bit of a nose ahead. He loses it at the apex. And once again, just look at that track out. Kalisto brave.
Boy, where's Soup when you need him? Jeez.
Oh, and a big slide down into the International Horseshoe. They stay in order, though. My goodness, these two. They are fighting tooth and nail.
Oh, the little train looks like Big Iron right now, baby. He's not giving any quarter to Travis Henderson at all.
All right, 25 laps in, exactly halfway. This means that we've got a very good idea of where things sit now. GT1 is light years ahead of where we thought they should be, which means they're looking very good to try and take the overall win. GTE is slightly behind where they need to be still, just like they were about a quarter of a race ago on those GT3 cars.
Joe, I'm so sorry. It's just, these two, I don't know if I've ever talked about a battle for 17th and 18th as much as I am right now between Lionel Kalisto and Travis Henderson. They were side by side into the bus stop. And finally, Henderson backs off a little bit, but he is being awful pesky here with Lionel Kalisto. I'm going to try and get a run at him again here, coming down the front, through the front straightaway here.
And the rest of our predictions as we watch this battle continue on, Henderson stays behind. The prototypes are on pace to be about equal to the GT1s from what we are seeing. So we expect that it to be tight between them as well as... excuse me, no, we expect it to be tight between prototypes, GT3s and GTEs, I should say. And then the GT1s looking to be quite a ways ahead of the rest of the three.
You might want to get your camera out for the finish of this one today. Maybe not so much the GT1s, but between the other three classes, I think it's going to be really, really close.
It'll certainly be a question mark down to the final of these 50 laps. I want to give some credit to Castro, who's really been running cool, calm, and collected. He's extended it to 19 seconds over John King, the only other driver in the GT3 class near him. We say that, though Wayne Hutchison has taken his pit stop. Castro and King have yet to take theirs.
Yeah, great drive by Dexter so far. He's been solid. Back in the Daytona prototypes, Henderson, Kalisto side by side once again coming off the turn.
And one of our other major players has taken his pit stops. Joshua Wolf has hit his pit stall. That's going to allow, you can see, Kalisto and Henderson to stream on by on track. Josh Gardner as well has come in for his scheduled stop. Remember, he had trouble earlier.
Joshua Wolf already away, back out on track. Gardner in.
So with 22 starters, we only have 3 DNFs so far. Hayden Pastorius, which I believe is a DNS actually. I don't think he took to the grid. Lyndon Swaby, early troubles put him out. And Ray Partridge, the only other DNF that we've had so far.
Yeah, it's a shame. Ray got that STP Mercedes back on track.
Oh,
no.
Aaron Stowe is involved in this? Who else is that?
That was the Daytona prototype, Lionel Kalisto.
That is going to break up the battle we were so anxiously watching. And it looks like this one's on Aaron Stowe here. Nope, maybe not.
It was turn 6 again. Just trouble getting the power down for Kalisto. He spins. Almost stopped in the middle of the track. Stowe had nowhere to go. Just trying to get through the turn.
I thought maybe he ran into the back of him, but once I saw the replay, yeah, you can see just was running fine and did not expect the DP to suddenly be sideways across the track in front of that number 99.
Boy, and Stowe really bent up. Trevor Vrofsky in the pits.
Another of our prototypes pitting it exactly halfway here. Almost exactly halfway. Benjamin Morton from the GT1s, the 455, takes his scheduled stop. And Lionel Kalisto is in as well.
Looks like the dominoes are starting to fall, Joe. We've passed the halfway point.
These DPs a little bit thirstier than some of these other cars. Usually can get about 50 minutes in, so they have a much smaller window. We're seeing pretty much all of them coming to the end of that window.
Aaron Stowe was just sliding around the track down to the International Horseshoe right in front of Joshua Wolf. Wolf finally able to get by him. He clears him. Yeah.
Oh, and Carter Kundinger. Wow, the progress that Kundinger has made. He just overtook John King for position. That puts him at a mere 19 seconds behind Dexter Castro with 23 laps to go. Both of those drivers in first and second have yet to make their second stop. Kundinger's going to have a little bit of traffic here in the form of Henderson coming out beside him.
Ooh,
Henderson's tires going to be a little bit colder here. Have to be careful trying to overtake this GT1. Sandman comes in now as well.
There's a lot at stake for Kundinger here. He's going to let Henderson try and get by, I think. No, not really. No. He's trying to drive his line here. Henderson being a bit of a pest.
Now he gets through as they accelerate onto the oval. Oh, is he going to use a pick maybe potentially here with Hutchinson? Is it worth that risk? He's not going to be able to get it. Henderson's going to be able to get up in front of him. Oh, but look, he's got a run. He's got the draft as well. Was closing in a little bit again. These GT1s have a lot of power. He decides not to try and pass him. See, now that's a question we haven't asked before. We know what the rules are on interclass traffic when letting the faster class by. What about letting a slower class regain on you and reattempt to pass? Is that legal?
I didn't see anything in the rules against it.
Yeah, we'll send that one to Mike Willett, see what he thinks about that. Well, we're going to get it. Oh, I thought we were going to get another look at it, but Kundinger does come in here.
Okay. At the stop, he sits in second place.
Heading down the long pit lane. Very wide out here. And it's so wide on this pit lane, Sean. It always felt like it made the pit lane look longer to me.
Yeah. It's actually not that long.
Oh. And Benjamin Morton why was he in? Because he was in already. That's going to slide him down. Did he maybe potentially get a speeding penalty that first time around? Not going to be helpful for the Aussie, or no, excuse me, Michigan driver.
Yeah, not sure there, Joe.
Now, Carter is getting tires. We thought that most people would double stint them.
He decided not to. Well, Kundinger's, listen, he knows how fast he is at this point. He's probably running the numbers himself. Got an idea that he's pretty far ahead. It doesn't probably hurt him too much to take those 4 tires. We know Dexter Castro, I think we've got a pretty good inclination. He's not taking tires.
Indeed, in a 90-minute race, Dexter a bit notorious for going without the full way on these GT3 cars. I think you're right. I think maybe Kundinger is just... Whoa! And Kundinger's off! Kundinger goes off in the Western Horseshoe. He doesn't hit anything, but scary moments for the Aston Martin driver. Let's look at the replay. I just went over to check to see how Kundinger was doing, and I accidentally caught this moment. We never would have known. Go figure.
Can't afford to be sloppy here.
Well, he eked away from it. Many a lesser driver maybe would have slithered into those tires out there because there's not much runoff to the outside of that corner. So as we wait for the rest of our drivers to finish their pit stops, We've got a few left to go, but before that happens, we're going to take a short break here on the Global Sim Racing channel. We'll come back for the last 20 laps here in the first round of the Predator Challenge.
All the moms think he's cute. He's not. All the dads wish he was their son. Sorry, Pops. Everybody else, they just want to see him blow stuff up. Satisfaction? Guaranteed.
Name's Tux. Agent Tux. And the pleasure, I'm sure, will be all yours.
Agent Tux is the world's most extravagant secret agent, and also its most mini. Become an insider today by subscribing to Agent Tux on YouTube and liking him on Facebook.
Welcome back to Daytona International Speedway. We're watching round one of the Predator Challenge. Our overall leader has just come in for his pit scheduled stop for Dexter Castro, who hits his marks nice and clean. No need to back up, and then he will be on his way. But the real question is, where is he going to come out in relation to Carter Kundinger? He was in second when he pitted in the GT1 class. Kundinger currently coming around towards the bus stop. I don't think he's going to be caught up to Dexter by the time Dexter exits. And in fact, Dexter is now coming out of his pit stall. if you're Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, Dexter taking fuel only there, Joe.
Well, that's no surprise from Dexter, is he? It's a little bit close to the pit wall there. But I was going to say, if anybody is just joining us, you're not familiar with the Predator format, all 4 classes out here are racing against one another as Dexter goes a little wide through the International Horseshoe. Brian Bennett pits from the GTE class. We also, I understand, Jimbo Pfeiffer pitted from the lead in those GTE cars as Josh Gardner has an off. What's wrong with Josh Gardner here? Not sure what was going on. It looked like he just was slow coming around through turn 1, and then he was off into the grass and then rejoined. And now he's continuing like nothing happened.
Probably looking around, making sure nobody saw that, right?
Well,
you know, like when you fell out of the tree when you were a kid, you didn't want anybody to see that.
Yeah, exactly.
You just gotta get up, look around. Everything's all right.
With 18 laps to go, as I was saying, all 4 classes are racing against one another. The faster classes were started on a disadvantage time-wise and are expected to catch and race towards the line at the end of these 50 laps. Your current leaders in each of the classes is a bit mixed up. John King is leading, who hasn't taken his pit stop, which he's doing right now, actually. So that's going to hand it back over to Dexter Castro any moment now. The highest of the GT1s is still Carter Kundinger, who now is behind Dexter Castro by about 16 seconds.
Mm-hmm. And leaps and bounds, Joe. Leaps and bounds. Of course, Dexter on that outlap, now just completing that, finally back up to full speed and finally back to the lead. But this gap is shrinking quickly now, down into the 15-second range. It'll be 10 seconds before we know it.
Jason Fleischle is the top of your GTE cars, but that's changing just now, actually, as Jimbo Pfeiffer cycles around ahead of him. So now your leader in the GTE cars in his Ferrari is the number 54 Pfeiffer. And of course, our leader in the DPs, that one has sorted itself out after pit stops, is Trevor Vrosky, but by a scant 1 second over George Sandman.
Now, Fleischle came out of the pits behind Dawson Brock, who is still on track, working on his 33rd lap on fuel in that Ford GT. Looks like he's running it all the way out, Joe. I'm sorry, not the Ford GT, the Ferrari.
Yes, he continues on. And of the cars that have yet to pit, that there is only Brock. William Fletcher, I'm seeing, actually is taking his right now, yeah. And the others who haven't pitted are the cars that are not out on track. So, Brock is your last car to blink. And you know what I love about this series is going to be fascinating, Sean, is they're scoring them not, within their classes. The overall championship is every man for himself. So the score that they get is only going to be overall out on track. And then when you look at the championship points, that's all that matters. It's not where you are in relation to the other cars within your class. It's just where you finish.
You get what you get, Joe. Period. That's exactly what it means. Yes. Every position counts. It doesn't matter what kind of car you're in. You just want to win these things. There goes Dawson Brock speeding into the pits as Jason Fleischle gets by.
All right, that's the last of our cars to blink. Finally coming in for his stop, which will give us a good idea of the overall order here. With 16 laps to go, we're almost to 3/4 of the race. We'll go over our predictions one more time to give you an idea of where everybody sits. But right now, Castro only leading by about 10 seconds over Kundinger.
Well, listen, Joe, Kundinger's had to drive it, okay? He's had to put in lap after lap. He did make a mistake earlier, but he recovered well from it, got back into his rhythm. And there he sits in second now. Leader in the GTE class is going to be Jimbo Pfeiffer, followed by Jason Fleischle. So that's 3 different classes there in the top 4. Go back to 5th where you find John King in his GT3. And the first prototype you're going to find down there in 9th, Trevor Vrosky, Still in a tussle with George Sandman. We haven't talked about them in a while, but that battle not decided yet at all.
Certainly not. And I suspect that Trevor is going to be fighting him very hard for that lead in the DPs, which I kind of wonder what Sandman's reaction to that is going to be after he had earlier in the race told him that there was a long race ahead of them, not wanting him to fight him. I feel like Jimbo Pfeiffer has to feel a little bit of consolation, even though he's already fallen behind Kundinger. Although it's not by much. We should point out it's only 7 seconds between Jimbo and Carter. And Jimbo's only 15 seconds behind Dexter Castro. We could be looking at a second place for Jimbo.
Not out of the question at all. Pfeiffer's had really good pace himself. That Gulf Ferrari seems to have been hooked up today. Certainly a podium finish looks good right now. A little bit higher up the podium looks even better. What a battle that would be between him and Dexter Castro. I'm sure Castro will not let him have anything easy.
I don't doubt it. Now, George Sandman has closed that gap in on Vofrosky to less than half a second. I have to assume that the draft is pretty helpful around here, and actually we're seeing it illustrated right now as he closes in at a high rate of knots.
Yeah, and the Daytona prototype does that best, Joe. Of all the classes here, they draft the best on these high-speed straightaways and banks. Sandman.
And sorry, Josh Gardner almost put it in the wall. He was trying to be nice to the cars that were already a lap ahead of him.
Ooh.
That was in turn 6 about 30 seconds ago here. We got the replay. This is, oh my goodness.
Yeah. He might have taken a layer of clear coat off of that going by.
That's what you get for being a little too polite sometimes, I think, Sean.
Yeah, you can be polite, but man, most importantly, you just got to drive your line. Expect those professionals back behind you to make the right move. Battle for 5th place. John King, Brian Bennett.
Bennett in the faster GTE class makes it look easy as he streaks on by John King's Mercedes. Bennett improves himself up to the top 5 now. You know, one thing we haven't talked about, though, is Kundinger is in the GT1s. Where's the next GT1 car? Is that Aaron Stowe, I think?
It is. Yes, Stowe sitting there in 8th place.
Wow.
Just a couple seconds behind him, though, are the DPs of Trevor Vorosky and George Sandman.
And that's for position. That's the same lap that they are gaining on it. But that's impressive that Kundinger has outpaced everybody else within that GT1 class by that margin. And here we go. The lead is about to change for the first time this entire race, Sean. Nothing that Dexter can do from here. 14 laps left, and already the 0-2 has the 13 in its sights.
Yeah. Well, I said it earlier, you know, there were some GT3 drivers that were concerned about this happening. Maybe it just being a little bit off. Here with...
So Carter Kundinger is now your overall leader and can start to stretch away. The question is not his relation to the GT3s, but to the DPs and whether they will catch them. He's going to have a bit of traffic in the form of Wayne Hutchison. Oh, Wayne's trying to get out of the way because he knows he's being lapped. This is not Wayne's fight. This allows Dexter Castro to actually catch Carter and maybe have a hint of a hope that he can get him back, but not for long. Now he gets through. The other question, though, is Carter has to finish this race. If he makes a mistake, Dexter or any of the slower classes, such as Jimbo Pfeiffer, could get that position back completely legally.
We also know this. The Aston Martin is a gas guzzler. If he played around with his fuel calculations and tried to cut it short, man, you don't want to come up short. Not here. Not on the last lap.
Bill would be proud of you, Sean. That's an angle we hadn't really considered, though, is you do have to get the fuel right with the pit stop in the midst of this effectively 90-minute race, about 50 laps long.
Now, remember, he had an awful long stop. I'm going to guess that may not be a factor based on the length of the stop. So taking that out right now, it is all up to him over these last, it's going to be 12 laps when he comes by. It's all about doing what he's done this whole race and just being consistent here and getting these last 12 in and going home with a victory.
Here we're seeing our DP battle for the lead. Sandman still hounding Trevor Vavroski for that spot. As we now hit 12 laps to go with Carter Kundinger leading, here's where our calculations sit. The GT1s, obviously, are well ahead. So they are looking very good. And again, this is all in relation to what we thought the GT3s could do. The GTE is starting to look slightly ahead on pace, that they could overtake the GT3s. Obviously, they're not going to be able to overtake the GT1s, with Kundinger having overtaken Pfeiffer early in the race. Now, the DPs, see, I don't see where our predictions are. Let me double check here.
Well, they are ahead on pace, Joe. Vavroski still leading them.
Yeah, it sounds like we're hearing that they're going to be pretty close with the GTE class, so maybe slightly ahead of these GT3s. Certainly going to hear maybe a few inquiries from the GT3s after this race to give them a little bit better of a gap next race, I'm sure.
Well, Joe, you know, again, when this is all said and done, you may need your camera here at the finish. It's going to be very, very close. These are estimations. These are not certain.
Exactly.
Still got to drive this track. Still got to get around here. Vavroski digging hard, but George Sandman is there to pick up any mistake he makes.
So come onto the banking once more. Pfeiffer, if you were a fan of him, the number 54 is chasing down the 13. He's only got 5 seconds up to Dexter Castro.
And if you're Dexter Castro, you just got to keep plugging away, man. I know it's frustrating. You've been up there up front the whole race. You look in your relative, you see Pfeiffer closing down. All you can do is just keep driving. Just keep driving as hard and as fast as you can without making a mistake. Let the chips fall where they may, and you know, maybe we get this a little bit closer next time out.
You know, I think the word for all of the classes, and this applies no matter if you've been passed like Dexter has or if you're Carter Kundinger, is mistake-free. That is the key. We've seen in these Predator races in the couple years we've covered them in the Pacific Majors, the driver who makes the least mistakes is going to fare the best.
Boy, it's lonely out there on the open road. Kundinger he's clear, man. There's just nothing out in front of him right now. He's got almost a third of this track ahead of him clean.
Certainly a beautiful sight for him. Now, we should clarify one thing. We had 22 cars start. However, we had 32 cars expected. And that meant a little bit more traffic that went into the calculation, Sean. So I think, to be fair, that would have thrown things off a little bit more. So,
yeah,
even though it looks a little lopsided here, I think that could be something that could have affected this today, that things didn't play out how the organizers thought they were going to.
Yeah, no, definitely, Joe. I think that's a huge factor. In fact, that's the big X factor, especially when you threw that into your, remember I said a very, very specific algorithm, okay? That is you can't guarantee for life happening, and there's no guarantee on who's going to make the race when it comes time to race. And that happened today. Yes, we wound up with a considerably smaller field than had actually qualified for this event. I think about 10, 11 cars.
And you take 11 cars off the track, that's a lot of lap time that could have added to these faster cars, hence why it seems like so many of them are able to easily overtake the GT3s. Jimbo Pfeiffer's got it down to within 2 seconds now.
Yeah, and John King is trying to hold on to his spot, but he's now losing it to Trevor Vorosky and George Sandman, both coming through. Coming through the Western Horseshoe here. Going to get by John King. John King going to lose 2 spots there in one turn. Falls to 8th. Joshua Wolf another 3.5 seconds behind him.
There we see Josh Wolf. As we come back to Jimbo Pfeiffer, now to 1.5 seconds. Closing in on Castro. He can now see him out of his front windshield. Castro having to let the blinking car of... trying to figure out
Michael
who that is.
Foley. It's Michael
and he's
Foley.
Disappeared completely.
Yeah.
This is not what Dexter wants, especially through these twisty infield parts.
Don't pop back in here now.
Oh, this has got to be nerve-wracking.
I hate it for him, but for Michael Foley.
And Jimbo Pfeiffer.
There he is.
Oh,
there he is.
Wow. Oh, my goodness. And Michael Foyley is the car that we were watching, that red DP. Some of the drivers are starting to get on the radio to let know that that's being an issue. Wonder if the organizers are going to maybe ask him to park it. Foley is well down the order. He's still 15th overall. Though he's chasing Travis Henderson. This is for position. But I'd hate to see that ruin the race of some of our leaders.
And Castro, I mean, to his credit, he's in the fight of his life right now. Here, Jimbo Pfeiffer closing up on him. Going to come up on the outside.
Should get him easily. As that Gulf liveried Ferrari sneaks on through, move Jimbo Pfeiffer into 2nd overall. Dexter Castro now down to the podium position. I'm trying to recall how many laps that was that it took Jimbo to catch Dexter, because about the same when we first picked it up is Jason Fleischle, 5 seconds behind Dexter. I expect it'll take a similar amount of time for him to overtake the main driver.
By the way, Foley did come off the track. He is in the pit. Good sportsmanship by him to get out of the fight now.
And you know, putting myself in Foley's shoes, I'm sure it is extremely frustrating. I'm sure he's sitting there wishing he didn't have to, that he really wants to continue and fight for what he could. But like you said, that is very, very kind of him to understand it's a danger to everybody else around him.
Not kind is George Sandman and Joshua Wolf. I'm sorry,
I think that's
Trevor
Vorosky, yeah, manages to hold him off. We've seen George Sandman pull the move around the outside before. He looks to the inside down into the International Horseshoe, but locks him up trying to stay out of the back of that powder blue machine. This is for 6th overall.
Oh, Stowe into Dawson Brock. Oh, no. Out of turn 1, Stowe gets into Dawson Brock. That was the battle for position. Stowe loses it coming off the turn. He's going to get into the side of Dawson Brock. Watch it here. He's going to slide.
That's an Aston Martin and a Ferrari. Yeah. He's apologized over the radio. We're going to watch it from one more angle. Not missing anything in the battle with Vorosky, so we're safe to watch this. It almost had it. Looked like he had it recovered, and then it swang around.
Wow. That's a good little battle they were having.
And that's exactly what I was talking about earlier, Sean, about being mistake-free. And poor Aaron Stowe must be suffering from some damage because he had another spin coming out of the Western Horseshoe. But yeah, Sean, you know, that can lose you multiple positions as we go to the battle for 5th, which isn't going to be much of one, because Vorosky overtaking Bennett. The Ferrari trying to hold to the inside. I thought he caught a little bit of the dirt, which can be dangerous here into the braking for 1.
Oh, boy.
This is interrupting our battle for the top DP. It looks like Sandman's going to sneak through the inside. So Sandman up to 6th now. Vavrovsky up to 5th.
Sandman just abusing those tires on his Corvette.
He's only needs 7 more on them. Vavrovsky's in a hurry. Both he and the Sandman flashing their lights. And that's Wayne Hutchison in the GT3 car that let them through. Your overall leader is Carter Kundinger. Leads by 19 seconds over Jimbo Pfeiffer. The driver we're wanting to see if he can catch him is Trevor Vavrovsky. He's got 37 seconds to our overall leader. So, Dexter Castro, I'm sure he would have liked a podium, but I don't think it is in the cards unless his competitors around him, ahead of him, if anything, have a major mistake. Because here comes Jason Fleischle now within a second of the 49 Motorsports driver as they come across the line to complete one more.
Boy, he's reeling them in for sure, but he's still going to have to get through turn 1. No pass opportunity there on the straightaway. It's going to come down here to the International Horseshoe is probably where they're going to get bunched up here.
These GTE cars have a little bit more downforce than these GT3s. Should be catching him in the corners. And you can see as he comes in to within half a second now. Up to the kink. He's going to wait patiently behind him. He knows he doesn't have to rush. He knows that it's unlikely that he's going to catch Jimbo Pfeiffer being 20 seconds behind him at this point. So the Colorado driver waits patiently, stays to the inside, sneaks on through under braking for turn 6 as Castro barely gives him enough room at the apex. It's going to make him work for it. But doesn't matter because now Jason Fleischle has gone through into 3rd.
Put a stick in his side. Let him know you're there.
And now Castro looks into his mirrors once again. He's got 6 seconds back to Trevor Vavrovsky. 6 laps to go now.
Boy, the DP so much faster than Dexter Castro right now, but boy, I'll tell you what, they're using up all of those cars that they can. Vavrovsky driving it so hard to just keep distance between him and Sandman makes you wonder here. I know he's not far from Castro, just under 4 seconds now, but boy, those cars so unpredictable right now here at the end of their run.
What happened to Sandman as well? He was within about a few tenths, and he closes up under braking, so now maybe he's being able to work down that gap once again. But he had dropped off for a bit of Trevor Vavrovsky. I'm not sure what's going on with George. 2 seconds between Trevor, our lead DP, and our lead GT3 of Dexter Castro. When they hit the oval, it is a done deal. Coming up to turn 6 now. Both cars slowing up. And if they can get safely onto the power, and they do, up onto the high banks they go. With 5 laps to go, Dexter Castro has to watch another one slip away helplessly as Vavrovsky now goes into 4th. From here, Sean, it is a hustle for Trevor to see whether he can gun down Carter Kundinger.
Yeah, let's go. You've got just a little bit of time left to get it done.
Still 30 seconds between Trevor and Carter.
Yeah. I think that's a big ask. I do. Even
I agree.
Here at Daytona, I think it's a big, big ask. And a little draft off of Fleischle for Vavrovsky coming around now. George Sandman going to go with him. I
wonder if George kind of just waiting right now to see if they can catch Carter, because there's enough cars probably between these guys. They don't know necessarily how far they are behind Carter. If they think there's a chance, then it would be in the best interest of George to maybe wait patiently and attack later on. They still have 4 laps left. Battle for 6th place is going to be between Wolf and Castro, I believe.
Yeah, you believe right, and Wolf going to get a bit of a run there out of the turn. Careful here in turn 6.
Castro down to 7th now. Up next behind him is going to be Brian Bennett. That one might be tight. Dexter might have a hope to hold off Brian. That is a GTE car.
Bennett just under 10 seconds back, Joe. That is going to be tough. That might be a photo finish between those two.
Now down to 3 laps to go. Kundinger still leading the way. Goes a little bit wide coming into... Oh, wait, no, I was looking at the car ahead. Excuse me, that was William Fletcher I was looking at going a little wide coming into turn 1.
4 seconds to Pfeiffer for Trevor Vrosky and George Sandman.
Oh, and third,
Sandman.
Sandman working around the outside, trying to pull the move that he did on Josh Wolf. Loses the speed at the apex and has to slot back into 4th overall, I should say, once again. I don't think that is a man who is waiting.
I don't think so either.
I think Sandman feels he's run out of laps. He feels it is time to go. Fifth going to change hands here as Josh Wolf is caught up to Jason Fleischle. Fleischle was holding an inside line down into the Western Horseshoe, hoping that maybe he can do something about this battle, but I don't know if you're going to hold off a DP, because as he looks to the inside, Fleischle now has to give him the spot.
Fleischle applies the pressure there, trying to get Wolf to make a mistake. Good driving by Fleischle. Wolf going to get away now.
Little update. We've had 6 DNFs already through this 50-lap race. Hayden Pastorius, Lyndon Swaby, Ray Partridge, Lionel Callisto, and Dawson Brock are your cars that have exited. Interestingly, Michael Foley has gotten back out, and I guess maybe put a little bit of a reset on his router and has gotten back out there. Didn't call it a modem this time. Made my director happy. I grew up in the 90s. Can you blame me?
Joe.
Yes, Sean?
Has that Aston Martin got enough fuel?
Does he? That's the question we've been asking. 21 seconds between himself and Vrosky. Is he going slower? What does his laps look like? I haven't been paying attention to that.
No, it's not. I don't know. Somebody said something in chat about him maybe being short on fuel. And now I'm starting to do the numbers, and I'm starting to wonder.
Well, he's ran 142s earlier. It has slipped down to 143s. That could have been traffic getting in his way, though.
Well, only got about a lap and a half to go, so...
Indeed, as he comes up to the bus stop and weaves his way through. 20 seconds between Vrosky and Sandman.
And those positions up in front of him, that's all battles for position. Claude Belleville there, Aaron Stowe, and Travis Henderson. It's 11th, 12th, and 13th right in front of him.
49 laps ago, we started not sure what these different classes had in store for us, as Carter Kundinger calls out the white flag to let everybody know that it is the final lap of the race. Indeed, he is held up behind these faster cars, but at 20 seconds with 1 lap to go, I think he has the ability to wait.
I think somebody was playing with us in the chat. Although the numbers are close, and I know that Aston Martin is a very hungry
George
machine.
Sandman looking to the inside this time as he almost had the opportunity. That was the first time we've seen him been able to get a nose to the inside down into turn 1. But they're going to have traffic coming up. He pulls over, sees the battle going on there as Josh Gardner pulls over.
Yeah, Gardner didn't want any part of that.
Oh, and that's one opportunity gone. Sandman knows he's got to do something here with Trevor Favrovsky. Desperately running out of opportunities. Both the horseshoes, the only other places in the infield that you can attempt to pass. Nothing doing here. Down into turn 6. He's got to get tucked right up on him. Little bit of a slide from Favrovsky, but he manages it well. Gets the power down. George Sandman stalking him, hoping that the draft is enough. I'll call to our leader when we get close to the finish line here. As they hit the backstretch, is there going to be a chance he's coming in closer and closer? And unfortunately, we've got to duck away because Carter Kundinger, coming out of NASCAR 4, is going to take the win in the very first round of the Predator Challenge.
And it's going to come down to Favrovsky and Sandman to fill out this podium.
Fireworks
Sandman?
going off to celebrate it. Sandman's got the run. Is this enough? Can he slingshot at the line? He's going to come around to the outside. He's got a nose ahead. I think George Sandman has got him at the very last moment.
Class is over. Class is over.
Trevor Favrovsky third, Joshua Wolf fourth. Pfeiffer, a wonderful run to a top 5.
He gets passed on the last lap, the beginning of the last lap there by Joshua
and
Wolf.
how about Dexter Castro? Let's watch this. He's trying desperately to hold on to this 7th position, and he loses it on the final lap as Brian Bennett gets by.
Bam. Well, Castro drove one heck of a race. I don't think he could be disappointed about anything.
He certainly tried his hardest. I don't think I saw a single mistake from Castro that whole race long. He should be proud of what he managed.
I don't think he had a single mistake. I honestly don't. We watched him a great portion of this race, and he was pretty much flawless, Joe.
Well, with the last of the cars coming across the line, we're going to go to break here on the Global Sim Racing channel. We'll be back with the unofficial results as well as driver interviews, and on screen you're going to see all the upcoming rounds here on the Global Sim Racing channel.
All the moms think he's cute. He's not. All the dads wish he was their son. Sorry, Pops. Everybody else, they just want to see him blow stuff up. Satisfaction? Guaranteed.
Name's Tux, Agent Tux, and the pleasure, I'm sure, will be all yours.
Agent Tux is the world's most extravagant secret agent, and also its most mini. Become an insider today by subscribing to Agent Tux on YouTube and liking him on Facebook.
Welcome back to Daytona International Speedway. We just watched round one, the first ever race of the Predator Challenge here on the Global Sim Racing channel. And in the end, Carter Kundinger was the overall winner, driving in a GT1. George Sandman followed him home in the first EP, and second, a mere 10th ahead of Trevor Vovrosky. Boy, you talk about the wise old teacher schooling the young newcomer. I think that's what we just saw there. Trevor gave him a run for his money, but just couldn't keep ahead when it came down to the final run to the line. Josh Wolf came home in fourth overall. Jimbo Pfeiffer, the highest of the GTEs, he finished in fifth, and Jason Fleischle came home behind him in sixth. Brian Bennett as well in a GTE, finishing in seventh. Dexter Castro started on the pole, but unfortunately he came home in eighth, not able to overcome the disadvantage of the time penalty that the other drivers had to come back from. Benjamin Morton, the second of our GT1 cars, well down in ninth. So Carter Kundinger, very much the class of the field. And then rounding out the top 10, Sean, was John King in a GT3.
All right, sir. And then our fourth Daytona prototype is going to finish 11th today. That's Travis Henderson, the Grizzly Motorsports teammate. And 12th, going to go to Aaron Stowe in his GT1. That was a GT1, right? Yes, yeah. Aaron Stowe in the GT1 and the Aston Martin. Claude Belleville, going to finish 13th. Michael Foley, 14th. Wayne Hudson, 15th. William Fletcher, 16th. Josh Gardner, 17th. 18th going to go to Dawson Brock. Lionel Callisto had big trouble today for Callisto, 19th. And Ray Partridge, 20th. And I'll take the last couple here. Lyndon Swaby, the last car today in this field, 21st. Hayden Pastorius did not actually qualify or take a lap.
With that, let's talk to our overall winner, Carter Kundinger, who certainly put a clinic on the field, winning by 16 seconds over the next car down. Carter, we could kind of tell from our calculations how far behind you were and where you were expected if you were going to catch the leader. Did you realize at any point during the race that you had a slam dunk on this thing? Well, I guess you did once you passed Dexter with a lot to go. But at what point did it dawn on you that it was going to be an easy run to the line?
Oh, man. I mean, really, when it got to like the first 15-ish minutes and I was catching all those GTEs, I was like, holy moly, I must actually be fast. And then I started catching the GT3s and I was like, wow, this feels good. I mean, I had a great setup. I was nailing everything in the car, nailing the corners, finished with 2X. So, I mean, I really couldn't have asked for a better race.
Now, is this your first time running the Predator format? Have you gotten to run it in the Pacific Majors before?
I actually that was my first time. And let me tell you, I love it. It's an awesome format. I mean, it gets you out of your normal just iRacing races, and I mean it's a lot of fun catching those slower cars for position, which kind of seems odd seeing as how I'm always used to running the Aston and the Autobahn Motorcar Group. So I mean it's a great series. I love it, and I will definitely be there for more.
Well, we look forward to having you back. It'll be interesting to see how things play out at the other courses throughout the season, since it's going to be each individual one that they get calculated by. Are you going to keep running the GT1 cars throughout the season? You're going to switch around at all?
I am using this Predator series as like conjoined with the Autobahn. So whatever I end up running in Autobahn, I will more than likely be running in Predator. So I'm probably just going to stick with GT1.
Sounds fair enough. Well, thanks for coming and talking to us. Congratulations on the win, and well done.
Yeah, thank you guys, and I'll see you at Mosport.
Absolutely. So let's go to our second place finisher. George Sandman had it by a hair, and Sean is going to talk to George about how he managed to get himself up into that P2.
George, what a long and winding road it was, but it finds you up on the podium, second place. Talk to us a little bit about your race.
Well, that was a blast, except for one really big mistake, which
I can see it wouldn't have put me in first place. I would have been a little closer, but we were still outdriven. So congrats on that. But yeah, I had that same kind of thing happen last year, and it was in the same spot. So I thought, nope, not this time, not again.
Yeah, well, sometimes it's better to be the hunter there on that last lap, isn't it?
Oh, yes, much, much better. I tested it a little bit, so I knew I could get a real good run on them. So I just really wanted to use them to work through traffic and didn't want to fight with them too much until we got inside those last five or so laps.
Yeah, well, but you guys were fighting 5 laps in to the race. It was quite a battle you had.
Yeah, I did make a comment to Trevor, though. It was a long race. I was kind of leaning more towards working together because we had a long ways to go to get to the front. And if we're fighting each other, all we're doing is fighting ourselves.
Yeah. Well, hey, listen, I know you're a veteran here of the Predator format. What do you think? What are your first your impressions leaving Daytona today?
Well, I'm happy to get second place after making a mistake. Considering to be able to win this, you really need to be able to run it and make no mistakes. So I'm glad I got up that high, and I'm awful glad that these things are put on.
Well, we're awful glad to watch you, sir. Congratulations again on the second place finish. Anybody want to thank real quick before we let you go?
Yeah, let me thank my ORAN race team. And my sponsor, HPP Simulations. Pedals just work awesome. Too bad I can't get me to work a little bit better.
Yeah, well, maybe next time, George. Thanks again. We'll see you soon. That is George Sandman. Big day for him. Had to come all the way from a 4 minute, 4 minute and 50-second deficit there, Joe.
Yeah, long ways that he had to travel to get there. Up next, we have our driver who came in third today, just got pipped to the line, Trevor Vavrosky. And let's see what he thought about George Sandman's advice with it being a long race. Trevor, first of all, congratulations on getting onto the podium. Secondly, did you feel like heeding George's advice that it's a long race ahead of you, or did you brush it off?
Well, it's really easy to say it's a long race and try and pat it off when you're so heavily favored to be the fastest car out there. I had to scrape and claw everything I could to try and keep up with him. So it being a long race was not in my favor.
Now, when he passed you at the line, did you expect him to maybe try to do that last lap snipe? Did you think that maybe he would try to be sneaky like that? Or did that come as a surprise to you?
Yeah, it was once he couldn't get me the previous lap going into one, because that's where he had been the closest prior. And with the GTE traffic and the first horseshoe, those were really the two other spots where he was right on me. And then I got coming up onto the oval, I got onto the traction control a little bit, which if anybody's driven the DP, you know, the moment you hit that traction control, you lose time. And then I had probably one of my worst bus stops, and he was quicker on the straightaway, so everything in the book was in his favor there. So it was great for him. It was a great battle. I've never been so disappointed yet have such a big smile on my face.
Yeah, I'm sure it was at least fun. It looked like it from our point of view. Now, coming up to Mosport, which is going to be a lot harder with traffic, I imagine. Did you take anything from this that you hadn't taken from previous Predator rounds when you've run with Pacific Majors?
Well, a lot of the Pac Majors tracks that we end up running, the Predator format, are this, and we just came off of Le Mans and the DP as well. And you have big old oval, and at Le Mans you have like 8 long straightaways that you can really get around people just by using top speed. And Mosport, there's only one significant straightaway on that track. Everything else is going to be in the corners, so it's going to be a lot more challenging to overtake.
We're looking forward to the organized chaos that is going to be. Again, congratulations on the third place, and can't wait to see you at the next round.
Hopefully I'll see you guys tomorrow.
Exactly. All right. This is Trevor Vavrosky, who also races the Pacific Majors, who took home third today. Last driver we want to talk to real quick was not on our podium, but started on the pole, and that's Dexter Castro that Sean has caught up to.
Dexter was on the podium for most of the race, Joe, and wow, you you talked about your worries about the disadvantage going into this, Dexter, and it kind of came to fruition for you. Joe and I both made the observation, though, and I'm going to ask you, did you make a mistake at all during this race?
I felt like it was pretty much mistake-free. It felt like I ran about perfectly to the fullest of my abilities. I lost 2 seconds right before the pit stops with an awkward pass from a GTE, but other than that, it was pretty much perfect. I did actually calculate about 0.2 of a liter short on fuel, so I had to do a tiny bit of saving at the end, but not much.
You don't think it cost you a position, though, do you?
The fuel actually it actually did come right down to the wire for a position, but I mean, it cost me a position, but I mean, it didn't cost me the other 47 seconds or whatever it was.
Yeah. Well, listen, you know what? Again, a great drive, perfect drive, a nice drive in the country here at Daytona for you today. 8th place, not bad. You were the first of the GT3 cars, so go ahead and take that as a bonus. But there'll probably be some tweaking based on the results of today's race, I would think, right?
Yeah, I imagine. I mean, I sort of took a look at it. I thought this doesn't quite seem right, but I didn't want to make a fuss out of it. And and about 20 laps into the race, I was like, okay, yeah, I'm going to be passed by lap 35 here. Didn't really have a whole lot of a chance, but it'll. I'm sure it'll improve. Just need to get things figured out. I think when you have people who are good at handling traffic too, it really cuts down on the amount of time lost from the traffic. I mean, you shouldn't be, even if there was maximum traffic, I don't think I would have really had much of a chance, because you shouldn't be losing a second a lap in traffic.
Well, okay, so that opens up one final question from me, okay? You brought this up, so I'm going to ask, what's it like driving around here for so many laps, knowing that you will be gobbled up at some point?
Yeah, well, I mean, once I realized that it was, that I didn't really have much of a chance at the win, I just sort of settled in, started, just logging laps, kept it clean. I was sort of holding out hope for a little while I might have a chance to hold off the GTEs. I was pretty sure I didn't have a chance to hold off the prototypes. But I thought for a little while I might have a chance at the GTEs, but they just held their pace too well.
Well, Dexter, congratulations on a great drive, putting on a clinic for everyone how to get a Mercedes-Benz around this track. We thank you, and we will see you next time. We wish you better luck then.
Yeah, thanks, Sean. See you around.
All right, Joe, that was Dexter Castro, our 8th place finisher today. He leads all GT3s to the line, but comes up short on winning us the overall race today.
Oh, and I have no doubt that he is going to be back with a fierceness to see what he can do next round. But we want to thank people before we close up today. Thanks to Mike Willett, who organized this series. It's a second one we've covered from Mike Willett, him being a longtime partner here at GSRC with the Pacific Majors, which is coming up tomorrow, as was mentioned, with the first time them running dirt. Thanks to the companies that provide the software and hardware for our broadcast listed here on your screen. Additional thanks to Eric Ekholm and Casey Lalonde, who also provide our wonderful music. See the screen for how to get a hold of more of their great work. Thanks to the team today, Amjad, Sean, and Dougie. If you'd like to find out more about GSRC, including upcoming races, you can find it at globalsimracingchannel.com, or you can check out our social media on Twitter at GSR Channel or Facebook at /GlobalSimRacingChannel. The next race we mentioned, going to go up to Canada from Mosport. Not really the best for multi-class racing. With this being an intense form of multi-class racing, it's sure to be exciting. That'll be July 29th on a Saturday at 3:45 p.m. Eastern. We also have upcoming races for other series listed on the screen, so check those out and mark them down on your calendar. However, until next time, race clean, race hard, and we'll see you on the track.